If you've scraped the bottom of the YouTube barrel to find this review, then you already know that Diablo 3 is Blizzard's very long-awaited action-adventure hack-and-slash RPG sequel to Diablo 2. Diablo 3 is blisteringly fun. Clicks have never felt so fulfilling in the short term, but why then am I bored after just 27 hours? Let's find out. Superficially, Diablo 3 retains something of the aesthetics and mood of its predecessor, and has arguably improved its critical gameplay. But my main fault with this game lies in Blizzard's approach to its players, demonstrating what is verging on a patronising lack of trust. My nagging impression when playing this game is that Blizzard owns you. Go here, go there, Blizzard says when you can have nice things, Blizzard's turf, Blizzard's rules. Now, I'm not suggesting that Blizzard doesn't have the right to dictate the terms of play of its own game, but I'd suspect that this approach alienates a great many Diablo 2 fans.
The more you tighten your grip,
Blizzard?
the more
Diablo 2 fans
will slip through your fingers.
Blizzard North's Diablo 2 was and is excessively addictive for a lot of people. Its longevity, I suspect, relies upon something that Diablo 3 lacks, and that is our ability to play the game on our own terms, to completely ignore the main story if we wanted by creating time-saving workarounds. These workarounds led to characters being rushed through the story, and to characters repeatedly killing the same boss enemy to gather scarce items to better equip their heroes. These efficiencies allowed players to concentrate solely on the core attractions of the game, and as pretty as the cutscenes were back then, the story was never the focus. It was the loot collecting, and that itself was dependent upon the involved character building and skill system, and these cemented Diablo 2's replayability. Rushing and boss grinding was facilitated by the sorceress's fast movement, by numerous bonuses that increased your chance to find magic items, and, very importantly, by the free reign of players to be able to join whatever game they wanted. Now, in Diablo 3, all these shortcuts are severed. Teleportation is heavily depowered, magic find attributes are scarce and negligible when found, and there is no list of games to select and join, instead replaced by games categorized by quest with tight level restrictions, and 4 players instead of 8. This means that you cannot complete a quest early or out of order, and trading will largely, in practice, be limited to within Blizzard's auction house. And there seems to be no way to play with a friend if their character is of a substantially different level. Many will argue, perhaps quite rightly, that making it difficult or impossible for players to rush, to boss grind, or to trade scam is a good thing. It forces players to play the game how it was supposed to be played. But just as any censorship of negative things might conceivably have a positive result, it should still offend certain sensibilities within us, and that is what I'm struggling with. Censorship and control inadvertently places much more emphasis on the lackluster story than it deserves, funneling players through an excessively linear questline. Diablo 2 was similarly linear, but was happy enough for its rules to be broken, empowering us players to cooperatively abuse the linearity almost however we wanted. The all-important story that Blizzard wants us to relive again and again is mediocre in the same way that any cliched blockbuster fantasy is mediocre, built on a stream of contextualized fetch quests and divisive stock plot twists, relying somewhat on nostalgic cameos for those of us who adored the prequels. Having said that, what limp story there is expertly told, rendered epic by the stunning cinematics, and plausible by the quality voice actors, sometimes momentarily convincing me that the story wasn't run-of-the-mill. There are verbal exchanges between your potential followers, who each carry specific dialogue for certain locations, and there's plenty of additional voiced dialogue should you want to talk to people further. Also, the character class you select will produce a different slant on the animated introductions to each stage of each act, and different dialogue responses to events and to mercenaries. So the narrative tools are used often and used quite well. But I doubt anyone will listen to the story after a first playthrough, given that the game is essentially a formalized race to make your character as powerful as possible. But even aside from its controlling tendencies, I don't believe it's quite hit the right balance between character, loot, and progression that felt perfect within Diablo 2. The gameplay is excellent, despite being heavily streamlined, obviating any need to make more than one of each character class, because attributes, which function similarly to World of Warcraft, I think, and Warcraft 3, are automatically allocated and skills are switchable. About 165 skills and abilities unlock as you level your character. Because these are freely selectable, players can evolve the way they play as they play, rather than pre-planning based on chasing a numerical value. which skills in Diablo 3 don't have. You aren't told in numerical terms what effect a skill has, so you need to rely on your own regret-free trial and error to work out which combination of skills is most effective. The skill solution employed in Diablo 3 is a kick in the face to those of us hoping for detailed skill trees and Lord of Destruction style synergy networks that allow one skill to improve others. But I cannot deny that this method is fun, graceful, accessible, and liberating. Despite this liberation, streamlining character statistics must, by default, simplify item statistics as well. Given the absence of skill levels, attack rating, and stamina, and given the hideous nerfing to magic find, lifesteal, increased attack and run speed, and the reduced need for resistances, and given that health and energy regenerate so fast already, there really is far less need for most magic effects. The only things you need to pay attention to, at least in normal difficulty, is vitality and your primary attribute, strength, intelligence, or dexterity, and maybe armor class, but that's it. There is just less purpose for loot. Because of this combination of character streamlining, and because Blizzard is paranoid that players will abuse overpowered cumulative stats. Not only is the loot less varied, but after 27 hours I have yet to find a unique or legendary item. They exist, and I assume their scarcity is by design to prevent the auction house from becoming flooded by them, but their rarity across the board is a further discouragement. And as mentioned, even further discouragement arises from the inherent difficulty in systematizing the harvesting of loot from a particularly lucrative enemy. The end result is that I will need to spend a great deal more time or money getting items that I need less, so sod it. Just a quick note on other things that have been streamlined. Rune words, ethereal items, ammunition, mana potions, town portal and identification scrolls, and varied quest rewards don't exist. Health and gold is picked up automatically, player parties are formed automatically, there's a shared stash, mercenaries never die, item prices are standardized to control gold production, because gold is actually useful now, and so on and so forth. This streamlining, a word which I've used far too many times in this review, seems to have rendered each character class very similar to each other. In Diablo 2, the Barbarian was a stamina-fueled tank incapable of killing hordes of enemies quickly, while the Sorceress was a fragile, unfit, but teleporting and deadly class, while at the third extreme was the similarly fragile and weak Necromancer, but whose army of summoned minions arguably made him the biggest tank of all. In Diablo 3, these extremes are thoroughly watered down. I've played a Wizard to level 32 and a Barbarian to level 18, and they both handle the same. They can both sprint forever, they both have a similar setup of single area effect and defensive abilities. There are no attribute requirements for items, so they can both wear just about the same armors. Beyond the initial amazing gameplay, it's very, very shallow. I never believed Diablo 2 was a real RPG, but compared to this game, maybe it is. In developing and improving its greatest strength, its gameplay, and in seeking to control your every action within the game, Blizzard have stripped back variety, freedom, and critically, replayability. I've come to the realization very, very late, having avoided World of Warcraft, that Blizzard is just another evil empire. This looks and plays a bit like a Diablo 2 sequel, but something of its heart and soul seems missing to me. What does that mean?